Perception versus knowledge. This is David. Hello, welcome, and thank you once again. Very happy that you're here and that we are connecting. So let's get into it. The difference is, so the cause says, we have been emphasizing perception and have said very little about knowledge as yet. This is because perception must be straightened out before you can know anything. Yeah? To know is to be certain, and certainty is strength. Perception is temporary. As an attitude of the belief in space and time, it is subject either to fear or to love. Misperceptions produce fear, and true perceptions foster love. But neither brings certainty, because all perception varies. That is why it is not knowledge. True perception is the basis for knowledge, but knowing is the affirmation of truth and beyond all perceptions. Now, I'd like us to talk about a couple of things. One, have you noticed that, let's say there's a court case involving, people who have been involved in an accident, for example, and the court is trying to determine what actually happened, the facts of the situation. So the court calls witnesses. Now we all know that you can have 10 different witnesses, both of them on the scene at the time something is happening. And the witnesses may report quite conflicting versions of the events. Even if they're, the witnesses are going to be totally serious that that's what they saw. Yet when you collect all the different versions, you might realize there's some glaring discrepancies. Why is that? Because quite often we see, not quite often, we are always seeing through our beliefs. We're always seeing through, in other words, we're always interpreting. We're never really seeing what really is there, okay? And we know this from science. We know, for example, let's say sight. Let's talk about sight. When you're looking at something, what's happening is you're receiving energy, which we call light, in our level of interpretation, the kind of energy that we're seeing, we call light. So it's coming and hitting our eyeballs and going into the retina, and then it's being converted to electric currents, and then those currents are going through your optical nerve and going into the brain. Then they're going in the brain, they're filtered, sorted, distorted, matched to other things that we're already familiar with, whatever. And then, so let's say like out of 100% of what comes into the eyeball, about 2% is what we really become aware of, and even then we've already distorted it. That's just the way the biology of seeing works. Same as eyes, hearing, smell, tastes, it's all converted to currents and then reinterpreted and so on. So it's not so far-fetched to see what the cause means from this paragraph, just even from the human level alone, okay? Now, the other thing is this. If your perceptions about something is wrong, then everything else based on that perception is going to be wrong. If you perceive something wrongly and then you make decisions and actions and blah, 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 based on that interpretation or that perception, if the perception itself was wrong, then of course, as a foundation, everything else built upon it is going to be mistaken. Okay? So, but now, coming to the cause, they're just trying to make a couple of simple distinctions here, differences. Number one, perception is temporary, knowledge is, you could say, eternal. Perception shifts, knowledge doesn't. And so on. So I think that paragraph is quite simple. We can move on. All your difficulties stem from the fact that you do not recognize yourself, you do not recognize your brother, nor do you recognize your creator. To recognize means to know again. Recognize, cognitive, knowing. Okay? implying that you knew before already. So you're simply knowing again. You can see in many ways, because perception involves interpretation, and this means that it is not whole or consistent. It never is whole or consistent because it always depends on interpretation. The miracle, being a way of perceiving, is also not knowledge. It is the right answer to a question, but you do not question when you know. As in, once you're in knowledge, you don't need miracles and you don't have questions. But outside of knowledge, you have questions, and the miracle is the right answer to that question, but it still involves perceiving. The only difference is that it's based on love and not on fear. Okay? Questioning illusions is the first step in undoing them. Questioning illusions is the first step in undoing them. The miracle, or the right answer, corrects the illusion. So first you question the illusion, and then the miracle corrects them. Wow, amazing, isn't it? I love that. Perception determines action. Since perceptions change, their dependence on time is obvious. How you perceive at any given time determines what you do, and actions must occur in time. Okay? Remember, at the very beginning of this course, in one of the, I believe the first or the second workbook, or a daily practice lessons, I shared with you a chart from a book called Power versus Force, and in that chart we were looking at, and please go back and just have a look at the first two videos in the daily practice, the workbook, and also in this series. Now that chart had a column that was talking about how when you're in different states of emotion, let's say like from guilt and grieving, or anger, or peace and love, or whatever, your perception of the world and of the creator and of situations is different. And on that table we saw how perception changes depending on your state. So if you'd like, you can just go back and refer to that. So, but this is the basis of this sentence. How you perceive at any given time determines what you do, and actions must occur in time. Okay? Knowledge is timeless because certainty is not questionable. You know when you have ceased to ask questions. Now, I have a personal thing I would like to ask you. So far, excuse me. Sorry. Can you start to see how this relates to eternity? Just look at that. Can you start to see how... Look, I'd like to refer to various definitions of the Creator from the different religions. And specifically, let's take Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. They say that God is all-knowing, all-powerful, all-present, everywhere, knows everything, everywhere and everyone, knows everything, and all-powerful. Do you start to see how sort of... And then we've also said that we, as the sons of our Creator, are built in the image and likeness, and not only that, we are one with the Creator. Do you start to sort of see how this relates to eternity? All that we're talking about timeless, knowledge is timeless, perception is not. Do you start to see how these things start to interconnect? Everything is connected. Even when you look at, let's say, this realm that we're calling the illusion of physicality, even here where we're experiencing some sense of separation, if you downloaded my book, A Happy Pocket Full of Money, and if you went through the chapter on quantum physics and on time, which is the first two chapters basically, you will notice that the very physical world is made up of energy. Okay, atoms and molecules and all that, but atoms themselves are made up of electrons and neutrons, and those are made of, or indeed are, energy. And energy particles behave timelessly. They don't necessarily obey the laws of space and time. That is a field of quantum physics. This is pure science now we're talking about. This is not, wishful thinking. The building blocks of everything that we are and we see in the physical world is itself made of timeless, spaceless material called energy. Okay? And all energy is interconnected. The separations are only based on our interpretation of this one energy activity. So I hope you can start to see how all of this is interconnected. There's only one, and everything else is just appearances. The questioning mind perceives itself in time and therefore looks for future answers. The closed mind believes the future and the present will be the same. This establishes a seemingly stable state that is usually an attempt to counteract an underlying fear that the future will be worse than the present. This fear inhibits the tendency to question at all. Okay? And it's very important to have a questioning mind. You should question the illusions. Remember, questioning is what establishes, is one thing that brings about the miracle as the right answer. Questioning and being in a state of readiness. In other words, even if for a moment you're coming from a point of love. Okay? So if you find that you have a fear on questioning your reality, then maybe you should actually, start to face that fear. Vision versus knowledge. True vision is a natural perception of spiritual sight, but it is still a correction rather than a fact. Okay? Spiritual sight is symbolic and therefore not a device for knowing. It is, however, a means of right perception, which brings it into the proper domain of the miracle. A vision of God would be a miracle rather than a revelation. Remember, we talked about revelation. The fact that perception is involved at all removes the experience from the realm of knowledge. This is why visions, however holy they are, do not last. Okay? So I like A Course in Miracles because it really sets us up properly with definitions, So right now, and I'm sure we'll get to a point whereby we appreciate this difference that is being communicated to us right now. Right now, we are being taught the difference between vision and knowledge. So even if you have a moment whereby your vision is so pure and you see reality completely, the Course is saying it is still a device of perception. Yeah? You're still not yet at the realm of knowledge, because knowledge is just is. There is no more perception. See what I mean? But I think for now, let's just hold this as something to keep in mind. We'll make use of this information later as we proceed through the course. Certainty. Certainty is always of the Creator. When you love someone, you perceive him or her as he is. And this makes it possible for you to know him. Until you first perceive him as he is, you cannot know him. That is so important. We walk around telling ourselves that we know that person. I know that guy. He's always like that. I know that girl. She's always like that. But until you really, truly perceive somebody as who they truly are, not their personality, not their ego, not the thing they did last week, who they truly are. Remember we talked about charity? Who they truly are, not what they appear to be. Until you perceive him as he truly is, you cannot know him. While you ask questions about him, now we're talking about the Creator. If you're still asking questions about God, you are clearly implying that you do not know your Creator, which is okay, but at least you gotta admit that you don't know your Creator. Certainty does not require action. Certainty does not require what? Action. When you say you are acting on the basis of knowledge, you're really confusing knowledge with perception. Wow. These definitions are going to come in very handy later. So, Although you might not find any actionable material here, there we go, the word action. It will be useful down the road. Knowledge. Knowledge provides the strength for creative thinking, but not for right doing. Perception, miracles, and doing are closely related. Knowledge is the result of revelation and induces only thought. Let's read that again. Knowledge provides the strength for creative thinking, but not for right doing. Wow. Simple but deep. Okay. Perception, miracles, and doing are closely related, but knowledge is the result of revelation and induces only thought. Even in its most spiritualized form, perception involves the body. Knowledge comes from the altar within and is timeless because it is certain. To perceive the truth is not the same as to know it. Okay, this is something that I think I'm just myself going to suspend talking about, because as you can see, it's in another realm. Perceiving the truth is not the same as knowing it. I can feel it, but I can't find the words to speak about it, so I'm just gonna let it sit there, and please just take it in and just let it sit within you, and that difference will become clear over time as well. I can feel it, but I can't really articulate it right now. To perceive the truth is not the same as to know it. Wow. Continuing with knowledge. Right perception is necessary before the Creator can communicate directly to His altars, which He established in His sons. So that's the first step, right perception. Okay? Before you can start to communicate directly with the Creator within you, like in, let's call it revelation, right perception is necessary. Okay? There He can communicate His certainty, and His knowledge will bring peace without questions. I had a very interesting, I've spoken about this before when we were talking about revelation earlier on in this course. I had a very, very amazing moment of 20 minutes whereby I entered this realm whereby, it was in waking day. I think it was a Tuesday roughly lunchtime, and I was just going to have a look at a car that I needed to get fixed. So I was on the way to the garage, and I'm not going to go through the story again because I've already told it when in the video about Revelation, so you can watch that for the full details. But the amazing thing is that, just like they're saying here in the course, and at that time I hadn't even read A Course in Miracles. I didn't even know it existed at the time, and I was very shocked. I was wondering what's going on with me, what's happening here. But it's the whole of life, everything around me, we became one. And then it took on a shimmering, even the trees, even the asphalt, even the things that are usually we call dead matter, such as bricks and whatever, even the sunlight, everything got on this shimmer where it was a million times more alive, and it was actually vibrant, and you could feel that it was alive, you could feel that it was part of you, you could feel that really you and it are one. And every time you had a question, it all answered with a voice which was not really audible, but was loud and clear, coming from everywhere, from outside of me, from inside of me. And it was so thorough in its completeness and certainty and knowledge that even if you had follow-up questions, you'd find that they immediately answered. It was, like now I'm talking to you in a linear way. You're wondering, what am I going to say next? But this communication was in block. It was not linear, as in it came at once. And it's such benevolence and kindness, but power and certainty. It was an amazing experience that lasted just 20 minutes. So I can imagine how it is to live within this realm in knowledge. That must be completely, because I'm not sure, but what happened to me was spiritual vision. The one that we talked about just before, the one that they said spiritual vision is not exactly the same as knowledge. To perceive knowledge is not the same as to know it. I mean, to perceive the truth is not the same as to know it. So for me, that time it was spiritual vision. It was perceiving the truth, but it was not really knowing it. There was a lot of action involved. So just wanted to throw that in, but I can guarantee you it happened to me. Yes, I was totally sober. It was the middle of the day and I was just going to go check up on a car, get fixed, and I was just normal. It was a normal time. So but I can guarantee you this stuff exists. It's real and it's amazing. Okay, now so let's continue. I think I digress. Knowledge preceded, where were we? Okay, let's just start from the beginning. Right perception is necessary before the Creator can communicate directly to his altars, which he established in his sons. There he can communicate his certainty, and his knowledge will bring peace without question. Yes, true. I've been there, felt it, it's true. The Creator is not a stranger to his sons, and his sons are not strangers to each other. Knowledge preceded both perception and time, and will ultimately replace them. That is the real meaning of Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, and before Abraham was I am. Perception can and must be stabilized, but knowledge is stable. Knowledge preceded both perception and time, and will ultimately replace them. Wow. And that is the real meaning of Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end. Before Abraham was I am, after is I am. That is the real meaning of, wow, that is powerful stuff. 1. If you attack error in another, you will hurt yourself. You cannot know your brother when you attack him. Attack is always made upon a stranger. You're making him a stranger by misperceiving him, and so you cannot know him. It is because you have made him a stranger that you're afraid of him. Deep material. Yeah? That you only attack somebody because you have misperceived them. Not because they've done something wrong or they're bad peoples or whatever. It's because you have misperceived somebody, and therefore you cannot know that person, that then attack makes sense. Anything, attack. By attack I mean blaming, thinking this person is not so cool, whatever it is. Okay? Perceive him correctly so that you can know him. There are no strangers in God's creation. To create as he created, you can create only what you know, and therefore accept as yours. To create as he created, you can create only what you know, and therefore accept as yours. Your Creator knows his children with perfect certainty. He created them by knowing them. He created them by knowing them. He did not create them and then know them. He created them by knowing them. Very important difference. He did not create them and then get to know them. He created them by knowing them. Okay? With perfect certainty. He recognizes them perfectly. When they do not recognize each other, they do not recognize him. If you do not recognize your brother, you fail to recognize your Creator. Okay? Yet, you, in the image and likeness of your Creator, know your brother and your sister perfectly as they truly are, even though you pretend not to. Okay? Alright? That is really, really powerful material here. Okay? This is really, really cool stuff. It's important to always remind yourself every time you have an attack thought in your mind, every time you look at somebody, every time you think ill of somebody in any way, that catch yourself and recognize that it is not the other person that has a mistake, it is your perception that needs correction. Really, really tough but powerful. Imagine if you went through life with such a perspective. So I think that was a very interesting video. To me it was really, really cool, and it had a lot of definitions which we're going to get to use down the road, and I think it would be worthwhile repeating this. So just go through it again, read the original course text below this video, and you can watch the video again. But I think these definitions are really going to come in handy. As you've noticed, that the course is slowly building upon, it's building a foundation first, and then it's down the road it's going to get into deeper stuff. That's why it's important not to jump. This is one of those things that you literally have to go step by step in a linear way, because it was constructed in a particular way to take your mind to to the atonement step by step. So just avoid jumping, and you don't have to understand and accept everything immediately, but every now and then it's nice to repeat a class. So anyways, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate us sharing, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you and have a good time. Bye.